Okay, the last draft was literal ass, so we are going to go through this again very quickly, very cleanly, keep it free flow. If you fuck up, just keep on going and get this right. What's up guys, it's Pliskin Boy here, and I love the Metal Gear series. You might not have known that about me. But anyways, if there's one thing that's characteristic about Metal Gear, it's the whole idea that the majority of the time you are playing alone. You are sneaking through these bases alone. You are fighting these bosses alone. Which makes the few instances where you actually have a friendly AI companion alongside you really freaking cool. So I want to make a video talking about this and ranking the best instances of this in the Metal Gear series. So at number 5 we have Quiet. Now Metal Gear Solid 5 has this buddy system which allows you to call in certain companions when you're in the open world. Quiet is one of those companions. She makes herself a little bit unique in the sense that you don't find her in the wild or build her at base, but she'll instead ambush you in the wild. So you get this pretty cool boss fight with her. And whereas Metal Gear Solid 5 has a lot of underwhelming boss fights, this encounter with Quiet is pretty interesting, as it allows for a lot of variation in gameplay strategy. There's also another variation of this boss fight you can unlock later on, which is much harder, but if you beat her, unlocks a Sniper Wolf outfit. But more as someone that you can interact with in gameplay, Quiet actually serves a very helpful role that directly ties into the game's gameplay loop. She acts as a scout sniper, so she can scout bases for you, letting you know where certain enemies are before you get there. She can leave ammo and supplies for you, which helps you save on GMP instead of having to call that stuff in. She will be able to take out guys if you order her to shoot them. She will be able to trank guys if you want her to non-lethally knock out. You can actually put her into this mode called Cover Me, where she'll take out any enemy that she sees, serving as either a nice distraction or a good bit of support while you're sneaking or escaping from a base. There are 3 different weapons that you can unlock for Quiet. The first is a basic sniper that can be suppressed, but is limited in the sense that it can't hurt enemies that are wearing armor. You get a much more useful trank version of this that still has that armor limitation, but tranks a lot of enemies down, meaning that if you're sneaking around the base and find yourself in a position where you want to be able to take a guy with you, but can't approach him without alerting everyone, you can just use Quiet to trank him and then bring him right on back to base. If you really need her to do a lot of damage, you can unlock an anti-material rifle, which you can have her use to kill any enemy and even choppers when shit really hits the fan. You can also order her to quote-unquote shoot this, which basically comes down to if you have a grenade and you want to throw it at a very specific enemy, i.e. a helicopter that's hard to hit, you can tell her to shoot this, throw the grenade, and then she'll shoot it in the air and arc it towards the chopper. So there's stealth applications, there's combat applications for Quiet. There are some limitations to having her around though, as when she's scouting around a base that's particularly on alert and expecting you, she might set off some landmines, alerting them all to an intrusive presence. So she's really powerful to have on your side, but balanced. Now the reason she isn't higher on this list is because although she has all of these cool gameplay mechanics, you can't really interact with her outside of cutscenes. You can have her give you a nice little thumbs up, but if you go to visit her on base, she's literally barred off from you, leaving it so that you can't interact with her. You can't really talk with her, you can't really do sign language with her. I don't know, you can't even give her a special item that'll have her give you a thumbs up at base or something like that, just basic stuff. Now in cutscenes, she's a little bit more fleshed out, but still what we're really looking at here are those unique characters that make the gameplay experience feel a little less lonely and add some really interesting friendly elements into the interaction part of the gameplay rather than just the usual combat stuff that you go about. And Quiet is a little bit limited for that, so while she's great, she has to get held back to the final place on this list for those reasons. Coming in 4th place, we have DDog. Now DDog is Very similar to Quiet, however, you actually get those in-person gameplay interactions with him. You find him in the open world as a puppy, and can bring him back to base. And while like Quiet he does get developed in cutscenes, you can actually have him follow you around base. Can't really do much with him at that point, but it's nice to have a little puppy that follows you around and you can roll on the floor and play with. You can also hit him. But when he finally grows up and becomes an active companion, you can pet him, you can take him out in the field, and unlike Quiet, he's always going to be there next to you in the field. In terms of how you can employ him in combat, you can have him distract enemies, you can have him stay behind, you can have him follow you close. He'll be able to mark opponents, but only ones that are close by and only temporarily, acting kind of like DDog sniffing out an enemy and giving you a little nudge to let you know it's in that general direction. You can upgrade certain equipment for him that unlocks different abilities. For example, being able to run up to a guard and stab him, being able to run up to a guard and tase him, giving him more armor so he can run up to certain guards and wound them and leave them on the ground, which leaves it up to you after if you want to finish them off or trank them and bring them back to base. Hell, there's even a way to have him Fulton different downed enemies for you. So there's a lot of gameplay interactions that you can have DD do that directly ties into the gameplay loop of scout a base, take guys, kill guys, escape. Now again, the reason why he's up higher than Quiet is because there's just a lot more that you can do with him. He follows you around base, he follows you in the open world. You can pet him, you can change the way he looks, you can apply different lethal and non-lethal strategies that you see much closer by you. He can actually get hurt a lot easier than Quiet, making teamwork very essential, in the sense that you can't just send him charging in, but if you send him after a pair of guards and he's taking down one of them, he's only going to be able to take down that one guard before the other one shoots him, implying or encouraging you to charge forward and take out that other guard that would otherwise shoot your companion. So that teamwork element and that in-person interaction during the gameplay makes DD a much better example of a Metal Gear AI buddy than Quiet. Coming in at the number 3 spot, we have a little bit of an interesting one that crosses over multiple different games. We have Paws, who I feel is a very underrated character, both in the story and in gameplay. You see, she takes on many different roles in the gameplay. In Peace Walker, you have this little side mission where you can go on a date with her and see how she reacts to different things that you can say, different things that you wear, and different items that you bring. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can interact with Paws, both positive and negative, that warrant a whole bunch of different reactions from her, which are very interesting to see. Later on in the game, you get to fight her as an enemy, which shows a completely different side to her, which develops her more, again, through gameplay, which is what we're looking for here in a Metal Gear companion. Someone that develops the gameplay and their own character in real time. In Ground Zeroes, she acts as that basic escort mission and you need to rescue her. And there's a lot of neat little things that are easy to miss that develop her character further. By the time we get to Phantom Pain, we get to see her as one of the only real interactable characters on Mother Base. Of course, you can interact with the Mother Base soldiers, but those aren't really characters as they are just guards on your base, just friendly guards. Paws, on the other hand, is a character, and while she mostly comes down to just giving you side quests, there's a nice little bit of interactions there, the voice lines are very nicely voice acted, and even if you don't have a picture to bring to her, a little event that'll go down when you go to visit her. So there's just a lot of ways that this character can interact with the player during gameplay across the series, and because of that, I have to give Paws the middle spot on this list. Coming in second place, we have Rat Patrol Team that you encounter in Metal Gear Solid 4. Now these guys are really interesting, because unlike the other characters that we've mentioned on this list so far, they only appear in one very specific instance, at least in a way that you can interact with them in gameplay, which is at the start of the game in the Middle East chapter. After encountering them and figuring out Meryl is their leader, and getting a little bit of an introduction through a cutscene as to how they operate and interact with each other, you get to experience them in gameplay when the Tengu attack you. Now there's a lot of interesting things that can happen here. First off, they can comment on your performance. So if you're playing well and taking down enemies, they'll make comments like, age hasn't slowed you down, or wow, this really does feel like the legendary Solid Snake, which makes you feel good because you feel like the game and the characters within it are directly recognizing your performance. At the same time, if you play like shit, get hurt a lot, or hurt them, they'll make comments like "get out of the way, old man." So it's kind of like that whole Psycho Mantis scenario, however a hell of a lot less gimmicky here. There's also, aside from just the usual things that they'll say to each other, there's observable moments in the gameplay, where you can just sit back and watch them and see how they operate as a unit, and a lot of character building happens here. The most notable instance of this is probably in that one part where you're in this hallway and Akiba will start having a diarrhea attack, and you get to see how the entire team reacts to that, how they communicate with each other, how they communicate with him, and deal with this crazy inconvenient situation that's happening in a combat scenario. This is really easy to miss and the game doesn't really draw too much of your attention to it, but if you actually want to see these characters and come to know them a bit better, you can just stop, get in cover, and watch this happen. Completely optional. There's also segments where you'll need to help them. For example, Akiba will get knocked out by a blown out wall and you need to protect him. You get to see each of these characters and how they operate in combat. You get to see even in their visual design during gameplay. For example, the big guy has an XM8 Grenadier, the sniper has an XM8 in a DMR configuration with a longer barrel, Akiba just has a regular XM8, and Meryl, being the cartoonish Metal Gear character that she is, will be whipping out a Desert Eagle, because why the fuck not? This all ends off with a nice little segment outside of combat where you get to see them jumping down an elevator and see how they interact with each other, disarming bombs. You get to know each character's role and their dynamic with each other just in this one gameplay segment, and they also interact with you depending on how you perform. So it's a very great example of how Metal Gear can sometimes just reach out of the screen and interact with you directly through gameplay, not just in a gimmicky boss fight like Psycho Mantis, but by having friends alongside you that react in real time to how you play and act like themselves, again in real time for you to observe if you want to. This is really freaking cool, and I wish Metal Gear Solid 4 did this more often. If it did, it might have gone down in history as a better regarded game. This brings us to the top spot on the list. The best character that you can interact with in gameplay, and one of the best AI companions in any game, period, is Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 2. Now this is introduced a bit slowly, just having him appear in the sniper section with Emma, having him be able to snipe enemies that you're looking at through your scope, and having a couple Easter eggs thrown in there. That's pretty cool, but it's nothing compared to when you team up with him in Arsenal Gear. First off, you get a little tutorial section that lets you go through that little area and get used to the sword, where you can interact with him in a whole bunch of different ways. You can knock him out and take his dog tags, which has him get pissed off and come after you. You can point your weapons at him, which gets some like really angry dialogue. You can have him comment on the magazines. There's a whole bunch of little intricacies there that are pretty freaking cool. When you actually get into combat, it's like that Rat Patrol team situation, but on steroids. He comments on your combat experience. If you're doing good, he compliments you. If you're doing bad, he says you're doing bad. He tells you to get with the program. If you're getting hurt, he tells you to stay back and heal up. What makes him interesting is that, like Rat Patrol Team, he can die. So while he will be adept, he will act like Solid Snake in gameplay. It's still up to you to work alongside him to make sure he gets through this okay. He can't do this without you. This is a genuine team effort between you and Solid Snake. Outside of him covering your back and commenting on your gameplay, he'll also supply you with ammo if you need it, which again really builds on that whole idea of teamwork. It kind of taps into more of what we saw with the whole Metal Gear Solid 5 buddies, in the sense that he isn't just limited to combat, but he can also help you and support you in said combat. But what really makes him stand out above all the other AI companions here is not only that his gameplay is top tier, but the story build up to this moment is so cool. You spend the entire game being helped by Snake, and he'll show up occasionally in the story, in segments. There's a couple of Easter eggs where you can find him, but here he is finally at your side and you're doing this together. It also helps that this is a tough as nails combat encounter, and really feels like something that warrants having two characters having to take down these armored Tengu that are coming at them. All in all, I have to say this is probably one of my favorite moments in all of Metal Gear, just because of all the interaction that you can have with Solid Snake, the variety in dialogue, the way that he not only helps you in combat but also gives you ammo and supports you, the way that he doesn't just say if you're doing good, if you're doing bad, but also tells you to take it easy if you're getting hurt. It really feels like you are there with the Solid Snake, and that is one of the coolest moments in gaming, and honestly, I don't know a lot of games that could even replicate that. Like, it seems damn near impossible, but here in Metal Gear Solid 2, they pulled it off, and it was amazing. If you want to find the best AI buddy in Metal Gear, look no further than the Arsenal section of Metal Gear Solid 2. But what do you guys think? Did I miss out on a character that you would have wanted me to mention? Do you have another memory with Metal Gear in which an AI companion, even if they're not really a character, shows up and makes an impact on you? If so, let me know in the comments down below. This has been Pliskin. Hope you enjoyed. Over and out.